After having been so excited for this piece and so, lonely to start stitching again, I am for some reason procrastinating the heck out of this. I mean, I know the reason. Making that very first stitch on a piece that's big, daunting, detailed, both scary and exciting at the same time, it's tough to make that very first stitch. It's just, I don't know, it just feels like a bit of a big deal. But I've decided that big deal is happening today. Do you want to come up here? Yeah, you're gonna visit. Oh, that's a good boy. This is what happens when I film first thing in the morning. It is still very much his cuddle time. Okay, bye. Welcome back. If you're new to this timeline, the timeline of this, then I will be linking all of the previous videos for you to explore in the description. We are around part 3, I guess I would call it, of the castle embroidery. Side note, I've been calling it the castle embroidery because I have to differentiate it from the last one I did. Like, I called that the Beauty and the Beast stained glass embroidery. This is also a Beauty and the Beast stained glass embroidery. They all are. So if you have any better ideas, I don't know what just happened with my hands. So if you have any better ideas on monikers for these pieces, how to differentiate them all, I'll take them. For now, I guess I will continue calling it the castle embroidery. And I'm not gonna sit here and blab about it for hours today. I have done that in the previous videos and I'm tired of editing it. So we're just gonna move forward. In this video, or this step of the process, I'm going to be stitching the outlines, all of them, and then choosing the colors for this. Now, choosing the colors for these pieces is genuinely like so much fun for me. So I think I'm gonna make myself stitch all of the outlines first and then choose the colors, because that gives me like a little bit of motivation on the more boring part of this. People asked a lot on the previous piece why I sew the black outlines first instead of just filling the sections with color and then covering the edges with the outline at the very end, which is more traditionally how you would put an outline around satin stitch. As usual, I have several reasons why I do this, and here they are. Number one is I want to get something permanent on here as quickly as possible so that I can erase the lines and not worry about something that is possibly temporary getting messed up or going away. Heat erasable pens, you don't generally have to worry about them smudging or smearing or even disappearing much. I mean, maybe if I stuck this like in the sun in the middle of July. So it's not a huge concern, but it does still make me feel just a little more secure if I have some thread on there telling me exactly where everything needs to go instead of depending on drawn lines for that same thing. Reason number 2 is that by putting on the lines first, it makes it look better as I fill a section with satin stitch, getting a little area done. It kind of looks like it's for real done. It doesn't look like, oh, like clearly that's missing something. If you just saw the raw edges of satin stitch meeting each other, it would clearly be missing the outlines, which means that as I photograph it along the way, as I do my step-by-step, here's where I am, it just looks a little more complete, it looks a little nicer, and it doesn't constantly look like, oh, you're not actually done. And finally, my third reason for stitching all the outlines first is that it's really just a cool step in the process. It is really neat to see these stained glass windows filled in with thread, and when you erase the lines, it just looks different and so much more impressive than just the drawing. And it's a really nice just step in the process to be able to see and to show off. So yeah, maybe it's a little bit because I want to show off. Ultimately, I do find it entirely worth the time. As I did on the last piece, I'll be stitching the outlines with backstitch using a single strand of black floss. Now, a lot of the lines on this one in particular are going to be thicker in the end. I'll add a way thicker border around the outside. Some of the outlines need to be 2 strands thick, some should be 3 strands thick, some may even need to be 6 strands thick. 6 strands thick. Because the original image for this one has even more variety between the width. A little side issue of filming first thing in the morning is I even more so can't talk than normal. The width of the outlines across the piece. When I go back at the end and redo the outlines, that is when I'll look back at the image and see which ones are thicker, which are thinner, which are heavier, which are darker, and I will adjust the outlines accordingly. Okay, and that is all I have to say on the subject right now. So I'm going to officially stop procrastinating and sew the very first stitch. Having lightly gotten started on this, I have a couple initial observations. First of all, the second that I made the very first stitch in this, I remembered knots. You know, tying a knot when you finish a piece of thread to secure it there, like you do. That's not easy to do on this, because it's huge and flipping it over is a process. Yeah, that's a new thing to think about. My current remedy is actually just not tying any knots. I don't know how much longer I can take this. I think it'll work through the outlines, but I'm not sure if it's a super safe route to go once I start filling in the color. But right now, whenever I finish a length of my floss, I just leave it dangling off the back. And my plan is, after a while, I'll flip the piece over and go through and rethread every single one of those little ends and tie it off properly, because there's no way I'm leaving them dangling. That scares me. Obviously, the complication of the size and reaching all of it has already come up. I've been spinning the frame around, I've been moving the stand around, I've been stitching in very uncomfortable positions, and this is just gonna be how it is. Eloquence. I knew coming into it that a piece of this size, no matter how good of a frame I was able to build, there was gonna be issues, and I'm prepared to deal with those issues, so it's okay. I will be in uncomfortable positions, I will deal with it. The sacrifices we make for our art. The other thing that I realized pretty much as soon as I started this is that I am going to have to learn double-handed stitching, which has honestly been a goal of mine for a pretty long time now. And now I am being forced into it by this piece, which, you know, is the best way to achieve a goal, by being forced to get there. So if you've never tried double-handed stitching, it basically means you use both hands to stitch. Of course, this is only possible if you're using some sort of stand to hold your hoop or frame. I've lightly tried it before when using a stand to stitch, because I don't do that very often. I don't typically like to use a stand, mainly because of that knotting thing. I like to be able to flip my piece quickly. And the couple times that I've tried it, I basically just sucked at it hardcore. But it really is one of those things that just takes like repetition to get good at. There's nothing there to figure out or anything. It's not difficult. It's just retraining yourself to use your non-dominant hand, for me, my left hand, and be able to do stuff with it. Takes me back to when I was 8 and I very thoroughly broke my right arm and had it in a cast all the way up to my fingers. I thought it would be loads of fun to spend that time that I was in a cast learning how to use my left hand, thinking that somehow I could train myself into being ambidextrous. Ambidextrous? Ambidextrous. There's a B in there. Because my little 8-year-old self thought that it was just like super cool to be ambidextrous. I still think it's pretty cool. So I tried to do everything with my left hand instead of using, you know, the bit of my right fingers that I could still use. Didn't work. What I did gain from this period of my life was very strong pinkies. It was for some reason easiest to like hook things with my pinky and use that to like open doors. Anyway, back on track, all that to say, I'm not very good with my left hand. So I've been doing it a little bit here and it has been getting slightly better. It's becoming a little bit more comfortable. But I thought, you know, let's do some scientific experiments here and see which is actually fastest. Is it actually faster for me to double hand sew than it is to single hand sew? And if it is, which is faster, having my dominant hand on top of the fabric or my dominant hand under the fabric? These are questions I need answered. Let's do it. Okay, so for my test, I'm going to time myself and stitch for exactly 1 minute in each of the 3 methods: single-handed, double-handed, right hand on top, double-handed, right hand underneath. To keep it as scientific as possible, I'll do all of the stitching on the cloud sections right here so that it's all on like the same kind of curves, because stitching on a straight line can be faster than stitching on a curve. I'll also make sure that I have way more thread than necessary each time so that I don't ruin it by running out of thread in the middle. And yeah, I think that's about it. How scientific can this be? It's just stitching for a minute. Start the timer. That was scary, I'm sorry. This is single-handed stitching for 1 minute. Here we go. First minute done, I am allowing myself to finish a stitch that I'm halfway through when the timer goes off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Time to beat, 7 stitches a minute. Also, this is making me like weirdly nervous and I don't even know like which style I want to win. I don't think I care. I don't think I have one that I want to win, but like that was strangely nerve-wracking. I was like, stitch faster. Double-handed, right on top. Seven to 8. It was kind of pushing it on the last one. But basically what I'm seeing here is that was no different. Last one, dominant hand underneath. Let's see if you're any different. And here we go. I really should have marked where I just started. Now I have to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is literally no difference. At this point, I stitch at exactly the same speed, regardless of whether I do single-handed, double-handed, dominant on top, or dominant underneath. So it doesn't matter. 420 stitches an hour. I mean, I guess that's good. Again, there's not really anything scientific to this, but I've had fun making some discoveries. So yeah, I'm gonna go stitch now for hours and hours and hours. Well, I'd call this the halfway point. It certainly looks more than halfway as far as like what's actually sewn. It's kind of just like details left. But as far as time goes, I'm pretty sure that what remains on here right now is gonna take me the same amount of time or longer to stitch than everything I've already done. 'Cause those shingles. I feel like the shingles and all of like the little details on the castle and the cottages will not be as monotonous as all of the flower details on the side. These are just so the same over and over and over again. Pause for cuddles. The frame has been holding up great. The fabric isn't shifting or loosening at all. It's still nice and tight, so things are going well. But this seemed like a really good time to kind of take care of those threads on the back, because remember, well, I'm sure you remember, it was probably like 5 minutes ago in the video. It was like a month and a half ago for me. I have yet to tie a single knot, and I thought now at this sort of halfway point might be a good time to do that. So some of these are decently longish. I think that might be the longest one, and I have no idea why I left that much behind. Some are pretty darn short, and some have kind of been sewn into other stitches. Well, that was boring. Let's keep stitching. It's time. Oh my God, it's hot in here. I don't know what is up with the weather, but April has suddenly decided to take on the identity of August, and I'm not loving it. After dedicating a solid week to getting this thing done, it's done! Just the outlines. God, I do not even want to think about having to redo all of these outlines at the end. Doing all of the shingles, all of the little flowers on the borders, it was slow, but it wasn't torturous. And now, of course, the thing that we've all been waiting for. Oh, is it just me? Well, how many hours did it take me to do the outlines? My estimate last time, I believe, was 100 hours. Someone in the comments said they thought probably 120, and that didn't seem surprising to me. I started on February 27th. It is now April 8th. So it took me less than 2 months to do the outlines. That's not bad. All right, I haven't done math yet, but I'm pretty sure I overestimated. 74 hours and 47 minutes. We'll round up because I like to. 75 hours. So I overestimated. I mean, obviously there's a lot of variables involved here, but here's something to consider. Was I way faster at sewing on this because of the frame? Because I could use both hands when I wanted to? Because I didn't have to hold anything? This is the first time that I've ever measured my stitches per minute, and I got that pretty even, like 7, sometimes 6, but mostly 7 stitches per minute, pretty much any way that I tried it. But what I didn't ever try is what my stitches per minute are when I have to hold a frame in my hand, especially a big frame like the one that one was in. It definitely affects some things. I mean, obviously none of this is scientific. Some of it probably comes down to what TV I'm watching while I stitch, because I rewatched the entire series of New Girl for like the 4th time while stitching a chunk of this, which meant I was almost never glancing over at my computer to actually watch the show. It was basically just background noise. Then I was watching the new season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I was looking over at the screen a lot because I want to actually see that. I haven't seen it yet. So that probably plays a really big factor in how fast I actually stitch in reality when I'm not sitting there testing myself. Anyway, now I'm just like gabbing on about all of this. Who really cares? I don't know. I do. I find it interesting. There's one more thing that's gonna go in this video before I wrap it up and start satin stitching my butt off. Let's get to choosing some colors. All of the colors. I want a cookie. Hi. I experimented last night and made tahini shortbread, and I've never been hugely a fan of tahini, but these have grown on me. On with the show. So in case you were wondering what this is, the lovely folks over at Cato sent this to me to try out, and at first I was like, what am I gonna use this for? I don't really sew enough yet to need something to hold my sewing thread. I think I only have like 6 spools right now. But then I remembered that when I was sewing the last Beauty and the Beast piece, I had skeins of floss on like every single surface in this living room. They were just freaking everywhere. So this time, because there's gonna be even more skeins of floss, I thought this is perfect. I can hang all of the floss from this thread holder. I can do it in groups according to color or to where it's going on the piece itself. Yeah, I think it's gonna be really, really helpful and save me a buttload of space. So if you're interested in your own, there is a link in the description. When you're gonna be working on something for potentially a year or more, you really have to take the time to be organized at the very beginning, or else you just make your life miserable, or at least very inefficient later on. My God, it's so colorful. Let's do this, shall we? Of course I didn't have every color I needed, so here's the to-buy list. Oh wait, nope, that's the full list. Here's the to-buy list. Did I get everything on my list? Yes. No. There was one thread color that they were out of. I think I'll survive. Did I get way more than was on my list? Of course. Now I have to go through this entire list again and match all the colors that I bought to the sequence they're supposed to go in. So let's get it done, shall we? In case you were wondering how long it would be until I broke this frame, the answer is this long. I have just broken the frame. Well, that took much longer than I expected. Seriously, yesterday I was like, oh yay, time to choose the colors. This will take me like 1 or 2 hours. It took more like a full day. I mean, honestly, I love the choosing the colors part because this is what you get from it, is this lovely collection of brightly colored threads that I get to sew with. But it's a much longer process than I thought when you're doing something this big. All right, so final thread count for now, because this could change and very likely will change. That one changed as well. I think I went from 96 colors down to like 89, but right now 133 different colors. I don't remember what my estimate was in the last video. I think I said 110 to 120. I was under my estimation for hours and over my estimation for thread colors. So I'm gonna wrap this up now because I've been filming it for 6 weeks. As always, the videos about this process come out few and far between. The next one could be a year or more from now because the next update would pretty much be I'm done. So if you want to follow along more, I post more regular updates on Instagram, progress shots on there, and then on my stories on Instagram, I post like every single little, like, I filled in this tiny little section. Yay! As always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for watching and following along. I'm gonna go eat.